Hello and welcome to the Coal Authority podcast. The Coal Authority exists to make a better future for people and the environment in mining areas. We carry out vital work to keep people, drinking water and the environment safe from the legacy impacts of our mining heritage. These podcasts are intended to offer some insight into the work that we do and why we do it, and we hope that you will find them interesting, and we would welcome any suggestions for content for future podcasts as these series grow. Without further ado, let's get into the next episode. Thank you.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to our next episode of our Confidence in the Coalfields podcast series, a podcast where we bring industry professionals together to discuss our collaborative working and the value we bring to the lender community today across the UK involved in lending for property or land for development in coalfield areas. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Boosie, Policy Manager for the Building Society Association. And Chris is a big cricket fan, so we'll hear more about that shortly. I'm also thrilled to have my wingman with me today, Steve Meredith. And some of you will know Steve is one of our mining consultant and information managers at the Coal Authority. Steve's been with us for over 20 years and has a wealth of experience, and he's also a qualified mineral surveyor. So welcome to both of you.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Morning, Lisa.
Morning. So starting with you, Chris, tell us a bit more about your cricket history and what made you get into it.
Yeah, well, so you may be able to tell now that you can hear my accent that I'm not originally from the UK. So I moved over here in 2019 and sort of looked around and thought to myself, what are the most English activities I can get involved in? So I thought I'd give cricket a go, and I've only played one season so far, but I'm absolutely in love with it. So I'm a cricketer for life now.
Amazing. And I hear you've also got all of the gear.
I just this past weekend I've purchased the kit, so I'm now a full-fledged cricketer, and no more excuses, I guess.
I'm a big fan of cricket myself. Yeah, I'm a big fan of cricket myself, Chris. Living near Nottingham, I go to Trent Bridge quite a lot to watch the Test matches. So what's your speciality? Is it bowler, batter, or are you going the all-rounder route?
Yeah, I think I do neither particularly well, so I guess that makes me an all-rounder.
Yeah, we'll take that.
I've been doing a little bit of research just because I like to research things about, our guests and what their interests are. So do either of you know where is the oldest cricket ground in the UK?
Oh yeah, it's got to be it's Lord's Cricket Ground, but I actually do know this. So there's an original Lord's Cricket Ground that's not where the current stadium is. It's like maybe a mile or so south of there, and I think it's Dorset Square, if I have that right.
Wow, I found out it was Mitcham Cricket Ground in South London, which was historically Surrey and home to Mitcham Cricket Club, and it's reportedly the oldest cricket ground which is still in use, and it's been in use since 1685.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I stand corrected.
So bit of cricket news for you there. Right, so we'll move on to some extras in this podcast today. I'm not going to do any more cricket puns, I promise. So tell us, Chris, a little bit more around your career history and how did you end up at the Building Society Association?
Yeah, so I've got a long sort of odd path to where I've gotten to. So I used to be an employment attorney in the US, and then I made a change of career when I moved over and got into public policy and worked for a bit at a pensions provider, and then made my way to the BSA to a sort of similar role, working on the public or the personal finance industry, but sort of a different aspect of it. So I've been at the BSA now for a little over a year, and I've really enjoyed learning the industry, learning all the sort of ins and outs of housing policy, and engaging with folks like yourselves and others.
Absolutely, and it has actually been brilliant for the Coal Authority as well, because I think we met about 6 months ago now, didn't we? Me, myself, and Steve. We were involved in one of your property risk panels, which was brilliant for us to be involved in. Where I think, do you guys meet? Is it 3 times a year?
Yes, that's right.
And then I know you've got an annual conference as well. Is that in May?
It is. It's in May in Manchester, yes.
Yeah, because it was a great opportunity for myself and Steve to hear some of the things that are going on in your world, and us to then sort of highlight some of the things that we do to then support lenders make informed decisions about lending against land and property across the coalfields. So that's been a real great door that you've opened for us there. So thank you for that.
It was really interesting that presentation we did to the property risk panel, Chris, because obviously our information has quite a bearing on the conveyancing process, but we very rarely get to speak to the actual lenders. Most of our dealings are with conveyancers and the kind of middleman. So it was very refreshing to be able to put our point of view over to a lending audience, and also to hear their feedback on what they thought about our data. So yeah, very interesting.
It was really interesting, and I thought from our perspective, or at least my perspective, not knowing a whole lot about the Coal Authority to begin with, it seems like a good number of our members are fairly comfortable lending, on the coal fields near coal mine entries, because they are embedded within their communities and have lent on those properties for years. So you can't really lend in Yorkshire unless you understand the coal fields. But it was interesting to hear sort of their feedback and what the industry could do better to sort of improve that process, particularly for borrowers who might be worried about purchasing a property near a mine entry, or estate agents who might not understand that there are lenders out there that are willing to lend on these properties, provided they can get some assurance from the Coal Authority or others that everything's in order.
Yeah. I mean, that's the message we're trying to get out, and like I say, the more different audiences and we can reach, the better. It's certainly gives us faith that the work we're doing isn't being unappreciated.
Absolutely. And I think as well, to be fair, there's still a lot of people that don't really understand our remit at the Coal Authority. And we're a non-departmental government organisation sponsored by the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero. And what we're here to do is very positive. We're here to make a better future for people in the environment in mining areas. A couple of stats here for you. So 11% of the UK sits across the coalfields, and we have upwards of around, I think it's 176,000 recorded mine entries, isn't it, Steve, in our database?
Yeah, that's the current number we've got.
And we've got our customer services and strategy team who supply coal mining reports to the industry, and this is to help homeowners make confident decisions when buying a property or piece of land for development, because let's be honest, it's a pretty niche area. Last year we delivered 157,314 coal mining reports to the industry. And as well as the strong relationship we've got with yourself, Chris, we also work with the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, who again we know use our Con 29M for conducting surveys. And Steve and I have got some work coming up, actually, Steve, haven't we, with the surveying industry, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Lisa.
Definitely. So Steve, you work in our mining information department. We're very joined up with the work that we do across our customer base, and I think it's fair to say that the work we do together around mine entries is particularly important, that we found out in recent months across the West Midlands area, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned, Lisa, we produce a large amount of mining reports every year from the Coal Authority. The customer services and strategy team, like I say, produces the reports, but it's my mining information team which looks after the data, the raw data that goes into them. So if you've got a mining report mentioning underground workings or mine entries or a host of other coal mining legacy effects. We've got a collection here of 120,000 original coal mining abandonment plans, which we use those plans to transfer the data off there, which goes into the mining reports. We're always researching them. As technology moves on, we can always find better ways to get better positions and more accurate positions for a lot of the features. So when we get queries in on a daily basis from homeowners, home sellers, consultants, solicitors, we're quite often, we call it going back to first principles, and we access the original abandonment plans and to get a good understanding of the data they hold and how it influences the modern day world.
Have you ever been to our archives, Chris?
I have not, no.
That's my happy place, Chris. The archives. It's a National Archives standard plan store, protected by an argon gas fire suppressant system. But it's huge, as well as the 120,000 abandonment plans. We've got thousands and thousands of other records in there that we've inherited from British Coal. It is, if you're ever in Mansfield, feel free to pop in and I'll give you my own guided tour of the place. It's a good site.
I may take you up on that. Thank you for that offer. I appreciate it. And just to pick up on what you're saying there, Steve, about being contacted by conveyancers, borrowers, estate agents, and so on. I think that's one of the keys from the lending perspective, is that the whole process is sort of joined up from start to finish, because we, our members are there to help, to support the community, to get people into these homes, and are willing to lend on these properties in a lot of cases. But sometimes the application never reaches them because the borrower is getting the wrong information about a particular property. If it's near a coal mine entry, maybe you need to be a cash buyer, you're not going to be able to get a mortgage, and so on. And so I think it is really important that process, sort of led by the coal authority, is as joined up as possible to get the right information to everyone in the process.
Definitely, Chris. We see that quite often. It's often homeowners or potential buyers who are contacting us, and like you say, they've been refused a mortgage application, but that application has never actually made it to the lender. The decision's kind of been made by the middlemen, the conveyancers, the estate agent, maybe the valuers and surveyors. And I suppose that's the point of this podcast. We're trying to get the information out there. I mean, bottom line, any potential for coal mining damage, you're underwritten by government statute in the 1991 Coal Mining Subsidence Act, and that's our statutory function, to be here to make good any damage at no cost to insurers, lenders, homeowners. But like you say, I think we've maybe got a generation of conveyancers at the moment, and they've grown up without an active coal mining industry in Britain. So coal mining is a pretty niche, specialist area these days, and it's like I say, it's events like this where we try and spread the word, and just to get a bit more confidence in what coal mining legacy actually means in the house buying process.
I think as well, from our research, Steve, the biggest barrier seems to be if there's no treatment details for a mine entry. But this doesn't mean the mine entry hasn't been treated.
No, you're dead right there, Lisa. Like you alluded to, we've got about 176,000 mine entries on the system, and we've only actually got recorded treatment details for around 25% of those. But for the 75% where we've got no details, just because we don't know how it was treated doesn't mean it's not been treated. People sometimes tend to think an quote untreated mine entry is a massive void just lurking below the surface that's got huge potential for damage, but it's not. Before the coal industry was nationalised in the 1940s, there was no central repository for coal mining information. So when a mine finished working, it was an agreement between the landowner and the mine operator on how that mine entry was abandoned. Generally, you've got a big hole in the middle of a colliery site, and a colliery site full of rubble. So the logical conclusion was, we'll put the rubble down the big hole. So most of these mine entries are filled to some extent. There's not just a load of voids lurking below the surface. Unfortunately, if we haven't got those details, we can't record them, because we can only put what we've got evidence for. But yeah, an untreated mine entry certainly does doesn't mean it's had no treatment carried out to it. It just means we're unaware of what steps were taken.
And I think that came as a bit of a surprise to you, didn't it, Chris, when Steve and I presented to the Risk Hub?
Yeah, I think so. And I think just to sort of bring it back around to the information that you guys provide, I think the comfort letter is a key sort of piece of information that gives assurance to borrowers, lenders, and maybe informs some of those conveyancers and estate agents that aren't up to date on what's been done, and might ring some alarm bells when maybe there's not really a need to put everyone in hysterics over a particular property.
Exactly. That's good to know, Chris, because that's the exact idea of the comfort letter, as you think it is, to give comfort. And when we get these requests in and we're looking to produce one, my mining information team does a lot of research that goes into this. It's not just looking at the digital data. We've got access to British Coal's historic shaft register. We inherited a lot of their shaft files, so we'll scour every source of information to find every little bit we can to help go into it. For instance, a lot of these features, they're 100 years plus old. And if we've never received any subsidence claims in the area, then it's quite legitimate to assume that feature has been there for 100 years plus and hasn't caused any instability issues whatsoever. So that's the kind of information that goes into these letters. And we find it certainly gives the public comfort, because it can be a worrying time if you find out you've got a mine entry near your property, but it's just making sure that comfort is relayed to conveyancers, to lenders, and that everybody's on the same page.
And you also, Steve, dealt with a customer, didn't you, in Bristol?
Yes, that was an interesting recent case study, I suppose you'd call it. A customer came to us. They'd found what they termed their dream house, but were unable to get a mortgage due to the presence of a mine entry. They found this very frustrating, seeing as obviously the current owner of the house had a mortgage on it, and they bought it not too long ago, and they couldn't really understand why the change in attitude and why they could no longer get a mortgage. So they came to us. We had a lot of good conversations with them, produced the comfort letter, and then they phoned me back after they'd received the letter and said that the comfort letter had made them even more determined to buy the house, because they could see what little real world risk it posed. And they'd talked to a lot of coal mining experts in the Bristol area with shall we say, varying degrees of accuracy of the information that they gave to her. And in the end, the customer actually cut out all the middlemen and approached a couple of lenders directly, and they were offered a mortgage there and then on the day when they spoke to one of them. So that's kind of what we're trying to achieve, one case at a time.
Yeah, and that should absolutely, give you comfort as well, Chris, that, you can come to us, and obviously people that are part of the Building Society Association can also come and approach us, and we can help to support those decisions so that people are confident with their lending, because ultimately that's what we all want.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to the founding principles of the building societies when the first one was founded, 250 years ago. But the idea is to support people into home ownership and support communities, and build new houses and take care of people throughout the whole process. So that's sort of our members' ethos and something that they carry on today.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's all about supporting the customer, isn't it? I mean, our mining information team is made up of ex-British coal surveyors, geologists. We've got all kinds of a skill mix across there, and like I say, we've got access to all the old British coal information that we inherited. So if you want to come to the experts, come to us, because if anybody's got a chance of having this information, it's probably us.
Well, we're going to start to wrap things up now. So I just want to say a massive thank you, Chris, to yourself for joining us on this podcast today. We're really looking forward to doing more of the same with you in the future. But I'd just like to finish on, Chris, what does confidence in the coalfields mean to you?
It's a good question. So I think from the lender's perspective, obviously the two main criteria they look at when evaluating property to lend against would be durability and marketability. And so I think confidence in the coalfields plays into both of those. So obviously, if there's a problem structurally with being near a coal mine entry or on a coal field, then that would play into durability. But also there's this public perception around coal fields, and we've talked a little bit about it today. If consumers and borrowers aren't confident in the properties they're purchasing, then the saleability of the property goes down. So there's not going to be a secondary market or a further purchase later on. So both of those sort of key factors play into it. And I think the work that you all do really supports that and gives lenders the assurance that both of those boxes are ticked at the end of the day.
Thank you again to both of you, and stay tuned for more podcasts with the Building Society Association.
So we hope you found that podcast interesting and insightful, as we've shown it on our social media channels. If you have any questions or further comments or any suggestions for future podcasts, we'd be really pleased to hear from you. So don't be afraid to get in touch. And we look forward to spending some time with you next time. Thank you.